Tech ecosystems in the making. We have four folks that are going to join us. Let me introduce them. Mariano Amartino, COO of Wayra, Latinoamérica. You may have to change that. Bedy Yang, venture partner, 500 startups. Ariel, Arrieta, CEO and co-founder, NXTP Labs. And Mac Haggmann, he's the director of the Knight Foundation and your moderator. Welcome, guys.
All right.
Make it a good one.
Thanks. So do we sit here?
Yeah, we sit here.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Matt Haggmann. I'm the Miami Program Director at Knight Foundation. So we're going to talk about tech ecosystems. You know, we're sort of, you can think of this almost as this notion of sort of disrupting place, right? I mean, we're seeing the cost to create, you know, continue to go down dramatically. The cost to connect are virtually zero, and the ability to act is going up exponentially. And as a result, we're seeing startup communities develop around the world. So often, it seems like the discussion, particularly here in the States, can be about talking about Silicon Valley, maybe a little bit of Boulder, maybe Austin, New York, but actually the map has gotten a whole lot wider. And so that's what we want to talk about here. And sort of we have here sort of three distinct takes on sort of how to sort of to take advantage of and leverage, I think probably is a better way to say it, these different startup communities around the world. So with Mariano, with Wayra, 17 different accelerators, the largest chain of accelerators tell me if this is right, the largest chain of accelerators in the world throughout Latin America and Europe. I think I'm right.
I think
that's a safe bet, yeah. So let's start with you, and then we'll come down and I'll give a little color on Bedy and Ariel as we move down. But what I want to first talk about is sort of your approach, how the markets you're in, and how you're actually going about it.
Well, first of all, we see the markets where we have some leverage. I mean, we are part of Telefónica. We are a fully owned company by Telefónica, and we are the accelerator of Telefónica's group. So for us, it's quite easy to see the markets where we have some strong position.
And where are you?
We are basically, Wayra is in Argentina, Chile, Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, UK, Spain, Germany, the Czech Republic, and we have 2 different cities in Spain, and we have one social impact accelerator in the UK, which is called Wayra Unlimited. It's part funded by the UK government and Telefónica, or O2 in that case.
So you're not in the US?
No. Telefónica is in the US, however, Wayra is not.
Yeah.
Is not in the US.
And talk quickly about sort of what it looks like. So if you're an entrepreneur, what's the Wayra experience?
Well, basically, the most important thing that we have, I came from the entrepreneur world, so at first I thought that Telefónica presence was not a huge asset. However, I realized that having Telefónica to be part of your investors and having you on board with all the knowledge of markets, processes, productization, and all that stuff, it's really good. And at the same time, we have physical spaces in all these countries where you can grow and internationalize your startup.
Yeah, tell me if this is right. So the Wayra model is you're actually having ground-up facilities, right? Where the entrepreneurs, when they then get into a Wayra class, are there for 4 months?
No, when we started 3 years ago, we started with a 12-month program.
12 months, wow.
Right now, we are cutting down to 9, and what we are trying to do right now is to have at least one month or something like that in other countries, so they can know other ecosystems and other markets to grow their company.
Now, Bedy, so with 500 startups, obviously, arguably the most well-known accelerator in the world. So you have accelerators in Mountain View and in San Francisco, but of course you have global reach, but you're not doing that necessarily through other accelerators. How is 500 startups sort of spreading its wings throughout the world?
So the general model we have, it's between accelerator and doing directly seed investments. And the vision is talents and entrepreneurs can be anywhere in the world. But the fact that we are in the Valley, we have access to a lot of mentorship, we have a lot of methodology, and also it's a lot about the mindset of being aggressive on the investments. And our hope is the fact that we invest, we can leverage a lot of the local capital to come in. So a little bit of the general approach for 500 startups is we tend to really believe like we can invest before the traction so that once a company starts getting like really quickly at its growth, then the follow-on growth capital could come in. And that could be, like, the fact that we use accelerator is because in the Valley, there is a strong sort of mentorship network there. And it's a very easy way to access additional capital, but the companies can be anywhere in the world. So we do 30 companies per, what we call per batch. And it's run between Mountain View and San Francisco. So we're looking at around 120 companies per year that can be companies from around the world that could sort of go through the program. So I would say 50% of the company are from the sort of general US, 25% it's from the Valley itself, and 25% is international. But it doesn't have to go through the acceleration program because sometimes for the companies, it's not as specific that what they need. They might need like more capital, they might need more mentorship, wherever they are in the world. So our vision is we are very present in the Valley, in the US, but at the same time, we have a lot of partners around the world so that we provide all those resources and methodology throughout.
And where are those places that you have those partners around the world?
We have in New York, India, China, Brazil, Mexico right now, and then we're looking to expand in Europe, Middle East, and potentially to Africa too. So it's trying to do a world domination.
So Ariel, so you now with NXTP Labs exclusively in Latin America,
yeah.
and
we invest only in Latin America.
And so talk about your model.
Our model, we say, I am a serial entrepreneur. When I sold my company, I started to be an angel investor. And then when I reinvested in the company number 7 or number 8, I realized that the business model of an angel investor is hard to scale because the companies need more than the money. They need help, connection, expertise, and you cannot provide this by yourself. You have to have a sound infrastructure. Then we met Paul Graham from Y Combinator, and when he published the first numbers, he have a post that they disclosure that they invest $5 million in 5 years in 360 companies, and then he converted this 5 million in 500 millions, and this 100x was a blow man for us. We see that there is a business model of an accelerator that can create a lot of value. Our first doubt is that is working in Silicon Valley. They can have this kind of portfolio because he invests in Airbnb and Dropbox and other amazing companies. Our first doubt is we can do the same in Latin America. And then we met David Cohen and Brad Feld, that they start with a similar model in Boulder, Colorado, which is the place that you cannot expect to have the next Facebook. Right. From then, we learned that the key to build these great companies is to work with the whole ecosystem. We are part of the Techstars Global Accelerator Network, which is 35 different accelerators around the world. We share best practices with all this experience in different markets. And we develop our own program, and we work in 4 main areas. The first one, we provide coaching and consulting services. We covered from tax planning to customer acquisition, meaning media, social media, online creativity, analytics, to provide support with sales, marketing, technology, whatever. We invest time of lawyers and attorneys and accountants. And that is one main part of the program. The second one is training. We understand that all the entrepreneurs, we start as a specialist, But if you want to be the CEO of the company, you have to convert you and generalistic, and to learn from taxes or how to deal with VCs. We create a program to train all the entrepreneurs in the same class.
So in addition to training, then the third and fourth? And
then we have, the third is, we believe in the cross-fertilization concept. That means that the entrepreneur can learn from mentors and also from investors, but they can learn more from their peers. And for that, we offer free office space and other things to engage this fellowship and community. And the fourth is, for me, the most important area is the network of mentors. We have 120 mentors. We already invest in 142 companies so far. And 17% of these, 75% of these companies raise their next round. And we continue investing in this company. We invest the first 25K, and then we do follow-ons up to $1 million by company.
Wow. Now, and so, in the places you said you're actually, housing these companies, yeah. Where are those places?
We start in Argentina. We have a space in Chile. We have a venture partner in Uruguay, in Brazil, in Colombia. And actually, yesterday, we closed a deal with Naranja Labs. Yeah. We merged Naranja Labs with NXTP. And we get the approval of INADEM, which is the Instituto of the Emprendedor in Mexico. They will invest $4 million in our fund. And Naranja is committed $2 million to invest in Mexico in this sub-fund. And NXTP is committed another $2 million to invest only in Mexico. And they will be our partners in Mexico.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
So also we have an office. We opened recently an office called NXTP Gateway. It's a separate entity in Silicon Valley,
yeah.
To help other companies to
connect to the valley.
To connect and to do a soft landing in the valley.
Got it.
It's a different approach from 500.
Yeah, no, it's different. So let's talk about the places. So you're all in these different places around the world, sort of tackling this opportunity in different ways. But what are the elements of places that actually make for really strong startup communities as you see them? I mean, Bedy, do you want to go first in terms of what some of those really good qualities are?
So when we think about elements, I would say it's talent as a first place, then capital into that. Then, of course, a lot of research university plays a big role to it. Very often, government might be incentivizing or not. And I would say another component would be larger companies need to sort of be active in the sort of tech ecosystem. And the sort of sixth thing that adds to the whole thing, it's a lot of exposure and media. So if you can get all those components together, then you sort of create a microcosm of a tech ecosystem. And our view, it's a little bit of if you have a region for 1 million population, that should be enough to have all the different components there. So it doesn't, we are in the valley, but that you don't have to be in the valley to really create and have those elements in.
That's a really important point to underline, by the way, because I think oftentimes in the valley, we might hear a little differently. Mariano, so talk a little bit about talent, sort of, and looking at places. I mean, if you look at population size and you have enough sort of population mass and density that the talent has to be there, or do you actually sort of find ways to look at sort of a particular area, the talent that's there before opening an accelerator?
Well, basically, we have one advantage is we are part of a strategy called Open Future, which is part of Telefónica, and we start looking for talent in universities and high schools all around the world, or at least in all the places where Telefónica is based. So we start looking for talent there, which is the first part of our chain. And then we start with grants there. It's called the Talentum Grants. Then when we find the talent, and we think that you have to find talent within the entrepreneurs, but you also have to help the entrepreneurs understand what to do with that talent. So at that point, Telefónica starts giving them mentorship and support. And then Wayra starts and get into the market when we find that we have talent and we have an ecosystem that is, as the panel says, in the making. We realize that some parts in Latin America, you have countries that never had an ecosystem. You have countries that are really, really small, but in every single country, you have at least one good university, at least a couple of success stories of entrepreneurs, and then you can build on top of that some sort of structure to help them grow. And that's where Telefónica opened the Wayra offices, or at least the way we at Wayra decide where to open offices.
Ariel, I'm curious, so as you think about sort of tech ecosystems in the making, are things that may not be directly associated with tech ecosystems important? For example, a strong, arts and cultural life in a community, a really nice urban density, things like that. Do you think, does that play into your evaluation when you think about this stuff?
Cultural things, like, for example, failure is something important, because failure is something that don't lose to take risks and to embrace the dream to start your own company. Some cultures are more afraid to fail.
How do you measure that?
You cannot measure. You feel that.
You feel it.
You
sort of
feel
know
it.
when
You talk with the people and say, no, I feel very safe in my company working from 9 to 5, and some other people feel that it's something different. And that is one thing. The other thing is there is a path. Most of these communities, they don't have their network of angel investors. There is no history from angel investors. You have to start from the scratch. The way to do that is to engage people to work with the companies, people that feel afraid to start a company. They have a lot of knowledge to share with the startups. And the way to start to create this whole network of angel is not saying you can be an angel, you can put your money there, because nobody takes this kind of risk. They have to learn and to engage with the companies. And the first way to do that is convincing them to give time to work with as a mentor and to feel that they can add value to the companies. They can provide advising. The time that they're bringing to the companies is a valuable time, and he is creating value. Then, when he wants to capture the value that he is creating, they will be part of an advisory board, and then most of the advisors in our portfolio companies are also investors in the company. But you can think that the first step is to invest money and then to be an advisor, but it's completely the opposite. They start to be mentors, then they become advisors and to form an advisory board with getting equity in the long term with investing clauses, and then they being investors because they believe in the company and they can capture the value that they are creating.
I'm curious. Yeah, Mariano, please.
About talent is, you just asked about the culture and arts and all that stuff. And sometimes when in all this ecosystem startup world that we live on, we think a lot of times that talent, it's only technical talent. And we do realize that there's a lot of talent, of creative talent, of cultural talent, of artistic talent, as you said. And this is something that we really like to see. I mean, we look cities that might not have the best technical talent, but the technical talent, you can help the country or the city to develop that kind of talent. Some other talent, some cultural talent, and some instances that you need to have to be an entrepreneur and become a successful one have to be more with the way you embrace life and what are your objectives. And this is something that we see a lot, for instance, in Miami. Even when we are not here, I know that because that was the next question. Even when we are not here, we do see that in cities like Miami. Okay.
We're going to turn to the audience, so please raise your hand. I'm going to ask a couple more questions, but please think about things you want to ask. We'll come over. I think we have a question here we'll come to in just a minute. I'm curious about sort of pitfalls, right? That just sort of, while we're talking about the things to really focus on, what have been sort of the key challenges or sort of the key mistakes that you've seen particular areas make as they've tried to sort of build their startup ecosystems? Mario, you want to go first? Yeah. Bedy?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. No, Bedy, no, please. Yeah.
My name was called.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, when they think about, I think the sort of, when we think about like the larger infrastructure, even you think about tech ecosystem, think about like what might be the general framework that would put the infrastructure there, right? And I think the government does play a role very often just to step out so that things can start happening. And very often you think people like in different countries saying like, we'll create an ecosystem, but we'll like do like a tech center so that everyone comes together. I think like you might do a lot of those initiatives to really create a vibrant tech ecosystem, but the most important thing is what Ariel was talking about, which is people really leaning in into like a mindset that will happen. Because if all the components of the infrastructure is there, then no one needs to go there and say, you know, that's like, you need to create something. It's like Silicon Valley didn't have to do like, oh, the government needs to do this, like you need to create accelerator, you need to have, it's just sort of like everyone lean in and then it creates a culture by itself and then you build the stepping stone until you have a vibrant
I mean, would you all agree, I mean, it seems, I mean, to Bedy's point that for these to work, it really needs to be grassroots. And top-down really isn't going to work. There's not going to be sort of one front door. There are going to be multiple centers of gravity. Right?
It is, but at some point you need, and I'm not talking about public intervention. What I do understand is that one key element of any single ecosystem is education. And when you see the history of Silicon Valley, you realize that maybe 70, 80 years ago, they started having a lot of universities fueled by the DoD grants and funds and all that kind of stuff. I know that a lot of times government try to do, or at least in some countries, governments try to do stuff to help entrepreneurs, and they end up messing.
Well, they're not as equipped, right?
Yeah, messing things out.
Messing things up.
Yeah. This is the really good way to say that. So sometimes what I think is we need to help people to understand that this is a really grassroots movement to build. I mean, to get all the Lego parts together and build something. But
it's kind of messy, right? It's not this sort of organization.
It's really messy. I mean, I don't think there's only one way to do that. I mean, there's no only. I mean, when you start, I mean, the network, the kind of networks that you have to build are not the same in Silicon Valley. And for instance, if we talk about Miami, it's a place I can talk because we don't have presence, so I won't offend anyone. I mean, you can't go and say, okay, we want to be the next Silicon Valley and we need to do this, and this. You have to tackle your own abilities and your own strengths to work on that. Ariel?
I think that there is some things that you can push and the other thing that you can pull. In the push, you have these governments and the ecosystem that are pushing to jump to create a company. And the other thing is that you have to take into account is you need to have the role models. The role models is the pull thing that you envision to be like, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg today, but Mark Zuckerberg is Mark Zuckerberg because there was Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and there is Steve Jobs and Bill Gates because there was a Hewlett and Packard. And you need to have this history of role models. In Latin America, we have a few ones. We have Marcos Galperin, which is the co-founder and CEO of Mercado Libre, a $6 billion company. We have Wences
Casares, of course,
we have a few ones. I think that we need to have one of these in each community, in each country, to prove that you can be like Mark Zuckerberg starting from Latin America.
Yeah, and is it the point, and Bedy will come to you, so is the point that when you have, in your particular startup community, when you have that person to really champion them?
Yeah, yeah. And
Bedy, please.
I agree with you that it's a very important component to have it, but it's a chicken egg thing, right?
Yeah.
And we are all here, like we're on the topic of ecosystem, but all of us are really active on building the ecosystem we want to see, right? Like we're building that. And if there's no successful cases, like you still have to find different ways to do it. So I do believe like people live by reference, and that's because like you create a framework of the culture to do that. But I don't think we should ever sit behind and say, if there's no success cases, then there's very hard for us to build. So I agree to a certain extent, but I will put a very strong limit because there's no success. What are you going to do?
The success could be start from Ukraine and move to Silicon Valley and create a startup there and to sell this company in $18 million, and that will be.
But that's a chance. That's a chance, and you're counting that the guy would create WhatsApp, and ideally he'll contribute back to Kiev ecosystem, but he might not. Yeah. And we are sort of building on a global platform. We're like, okay, we can wait for that because if that comes in, that's not like liquidity, right? When we're as investor, when it comes in, that's great. But you have to build in the direction to sort of at certain point says there's no like chicken egg thing.
No, sorry. When we talk about it's a really nice point because when we talk about success stories or cases, we tend to talk about the same 5 persons in Latin America.
New generation.
I know
but
there's a new generation,
we can cite.
but
I mean, here in Miami we can cite success stories.
Yes, you have. But for instance, being part of, I mean, I'm from Argentina, so I know Wences and Marcos and all that stuff. Well, yeah, you're surrounded by Argentinians.
We may win the World Cup still. I'm Brazilian.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
Bedy, so you all know, is from Brazil. So we have 2 Argentinians and a Brazilian.
Yeah. What I see is that at least in Latin America, and it's really, really good what happens, is that people that have success stories and that have really success companies within the region, they keep investing and they keep mentoring people, and it's really, really amazing. I always say that when you talk about, and not only investing money, they are investing time. For instance, Wences, which is someone that lives in Palo Alto right now, he's from Argentina. I know that every time that one entrepreneur goes to Silicon Valley or whatever, I can send him an email and say, hey, Wences, can you help him out? He's doing this and that. And he really invests time and he really helps these people. And I know this cascade effect, which is not only money. It's also sharing what they did wrong, what they did right. For instance, Marcos, it's a really, really generous person. You have Ariel, Damian was former partner of Ariel. Damian, it's someone that I really call every 2 weeks to ask him something. And this is something that we have to, besides the fact that at some point you have to let it go and see what happens, you have to help people help another people.
Yeah. So let's go to a question right over here.
Sorry.
No.
Yes. Oh, you didn't let the Brazilian respond to
Oh, no, did you want to respond?
No, that's it. You lose. You lose.
Guys, do we get it on? Because none of you are right anyway. England is clearly winning the World Cup.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm taking no sides on that. Well, I'm Venezuelan, unfortunately, so we never make the World Cup. So thank you for being here. One quick question, for all of you, you guys are working on the, startup scene in other countries, looking at other markets, and obviously here in Miami, we're trying to be this gateway city. I'm curious, not just from an ecosystem standpoint, but from growing markets, right? As these companies grow outside in Latin America and are looking to penetrate into the US market, how do you see Miami as trying to pitch itself as this perfect gateway for growing your company into the US?
Who wants to take that first?
I will take.
That was not, by the way, planted.
Yeah,
that
it's part of your team.
That's right.
We sent here, I will talk about our experience. We, in our 142 companies, 7 of these companies coming here. And they moved to here and spent a few months, and only 1 is remaining in Miami. And most of them received some initial investments from angels, but nobody received what we expect from Miami.
They came here to do an accelerator program, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And there is some cases that they came alone and without this acceleration program. And I think that Miami had to find their own specialists, because most of the tech companies or consumer internet goes to Silicon Valley, or big data goes to Silicon Valley. If you have companies like iBillionaire in our portfolio, it's a company related with finance. They go to New York because it's Wall Street there. Or some advertising tech companies move to New York also because Madison Avenue is there and they have a connection with big agencies. And if you're running a biotech company, probably you choose to move your company to Boston. And we need to find the right vertical for Miami. My advice is focus on potentially in 2 verticals. One is tourists, because from here there is a lot of companies, all the cruisers are coming from here, and that will be a hub to find the right mentors to work to connect with these companies, with these startups. And probably these guys are not aware that there is a community of startups, and they're working here, and they are thinking in the corporation, and they can find a way to connect with them. The second one probably will be art, because that will be a change on the identity of Miami in the last year, what is happening with Wynwood and all this neighborhood. I think it's amazing, and probably that will be a potential area in which tech companies related with art, there is more than a reason to come here and to relocate there.
Can I play panelist for a second, in addition to being moderator, and then I'll turn it over to you? So one thing to sort of think of, I think it's instructive even for people from Miami. Oftentimes there's not an awareness of actually what's happening in Miami right now that's helpful, that actually goes beyond tourism and arts. You just had Juan Calle on stage, who is originally from Colombia, launched .co, had $109 million exit. He's on Brickell Avenue here in Miami. Just a couple of weeks ago.
He can be here. That's the same that
and then in addition, we had, in terms of healthcare, Mako Surgical, which is a robotics company, had a $1.65 billion exit in December, right? And then, of course, we have Open English, which is the largest online English language learning platform in the Americas, which from Miami has raised more than $100 million in venture capital. And that founder, actually, who's here in Miami, just launched another startup called Next University, in which he brought in a CEO, moved that CEO here to run the company, and just as to start the company, raised more than $2 million in 3 weeks just to get it started. So just to give just a little bit different frame in addition, but please.
No, for instance, not talking as part of Wayra, as an entrepreneur. I mean, last 1.5 years ago, I was running Hypertextual, which is a blogging network in Latin America. We realized that if we didn't have a presence in Miami, we were losing business and money. Basically, what you have to understand is that you have some things in Miami that only happen in Miami. For instance, all US companies that tries to tackle Latin American market has their headquarters here, Microsoft, Burger King, whatever. And then you have all the agency groups. They buy regional advertising campaigns from Miami, so you have to be here. So sometimes you don't have to have the whole company based on Miami. And this is something that we realized with Wayra. I mean, you can have your design team based in Miami, your sales team based in Miami, your development team based in Slovakia, which really happened. I really don't know how, but you have your development team there, but you have a huge part of your company here. And if you are from Latin America, for instance, Venezuela, you realize that you will have here some security and I don't know how to be polite on this. You have you have a lot of you have a framework to do safe business and attack the Latin American market, not even the US market. You can attack the Latin American market thanks to Miami huge connections with all the region.
Now we have
another question.
4 minutes left. Is there another question?
I think there was a question
Right
down
over-
here from
right over here.
Do you still have your question?
Is there a question here?
Shall I go?
Sure.
Over?
Yeah. Why don't we?
All right. Okay, we'll go over there.
Thank you very much. So we discussed a little bit today about making sure that we promote the entrepreneurial spirit and how some of you are already trying to get involved with, at the college level, inspiring at entrepreneurship. Now, the question really then becomes, how far back can we scale it? Can we create, or are you willing to create entrepreneurial programs at the high school level and even further back at the middle school level? Are they ready for it? What is the best way to continue scaling that in ecosystems
And is
for
that even
entrepreneurship?
something you're thinking about in terms of what you're doing? Because you're so further down, you know, downstream. But is that something that you pay
I mean,
attention to?
in Telefónica's case, we have the Talentum grants. We seek talent in high schools. I really don't know if in lower ages. What we try to make is to find talent and try to help them understand what it takes to create a company and to run a company. Because once you're an entrepreneur, I mean, it's nice to have an entrepreneur title, but you end up being a businessman and you end up, I mean, a successful entrepreneur is no longer an entrepreneur. I mean, the Google guys, it's not start. I mean, I talk to people and they say, hey, I'm into this Google startup. Man, Google's not startup. Google is a huge corporate company. No, I'm not saying evil, okay? So the same happens with Facebook, and same happened with Microsoft. At some point, they were in a startup, but they are not. So what we try to do is try to help them understand what to do with their talent, and they can choose to be entrepreneurs or not.
In our case, and also I think the perspective of the tech ecosystem, like in the ideal world, 500 startups wouldn't be alone, and it's not alone. So that's why like we work all together with like
You're
NXTP.
surrounded.
We're surrounded, not only by Argentine. And the ideal world is like it's not 5 initiatives from the grassroots. Like ideally, you have like 100 different initiatives sort of going on in the building of that, right? So to your specific question, like how early we'll go, for 500 startups perspective, we look at companies with at least like a prototype of a product. We run a lot of events by topic where we feel like those are the topics we want to do like additional investments. But on the like wearing like another hat, like in Brazil, I have an organization that does totally grassroots activities with the talent. And we work right now with the universities because that's the first layer. But once you tap into that layer, you can go like even earlier. So it's a little bit of the stage of the ecosystem. And it's really positive when you have like a lot of like what makes a really great place when you have really a lot of initiatives trying to promote that, because then it becomes something not like one person is trying to make it happen. It becomes something a little bit more organic, which is really, really important.
Yeah. In Latin America, there is an organization called Junior Achievement. It's an NGO that is amazing work, working with high school alumni, and they work to start their own first companies there. In our case, we want to have entrepreneurs that they have a previous experience working in companies, and from this experience, they're launching their companies. They're using this knowledge. And that is why we need to find the people. The ideal age for us is between 30 to 40, because that's the age that the entrepreneur has enough experience, and probably they don't have too much family working with them, and they can go 3 months to a trip to open an office in another country.
Well, we're just about out of time. For a final question, do you have a really quick one?
We don't.
No, we're good. Sorry, I was gonna, it's the English guys. So. I think we'd all agree, sort of the genie is increasingly out of the bottle, right? In terms of sort of startups and where we're seeing them grow and scale. But just as a final question, so when are we going to see, or who's going to be first launching in Miami?
I like to explore the opportunity to have a vertical accelerator in those
two areas.
In those verticals, I think, or maybe others, if there is more things happening here that I know. But we need to address better the Latin American market to build a good bridge, this gateway with Silicon Valley, and then we will be ready to attend to.
All right.
We've already been here. We made our first global demo day in Miami like 2 years ago.
Yes, you did, at the Lab
Yes,
Miami.
we trust Miami for a long time ago in a galaxy far away.
So, well, we have our MCs. Let's thank our panel. Thank you very much.
Well done, guys. Awesome job.